We are live. I will wait as people start to join us. This is Cy Wakeman. I'm on Facebook Live, and we are creating space for people to know that there's a place of like-minded people that they can come to and just talk about quarantined life, I guess, and hopefully not just talk about what we feel is different or what we've lost, but today we're really going to focus on what is being revealed to us in this time. This time has stripped away a lot of things kind of forcefully and put us in a bit of a big timeout. And I think it's so important to notice what is being revealed to us. So hi, Ellie. As people are joining, let's give people a few minutes. If you want to just jump in and even just start letting us know who's on, where you're from, as people come in, and then I've got some bigger questions for you for today. And of course, I will be here to answer your questions because I know that in the beginning, a lot of us, our strategy was we're just going to muscle through this and persevere and do our part for our world by sitting on the couch. And our strategy was like, how hard can that be? But now, as this continues, and we're thinking, life will be different for quite a while, if not forever, we'll get into how do we get some more permanent strategies in place. But really, for all of you just joining us, like, who are you and where are you joining from? And I've got Andy from Atlanta. So glad to have you on and excited to see so many of you that I've met over the years, some like childhood friends, all the way to people just finding us and just hearing about us. So as you're all joining, tell us like who's on, where you're from, and we're going to have some time to respond to your comments and questions. And thanks for all the hearts. You guys are fantastic. What we're going to talk about today, at least for part of it, is as we're moving into this. Hi, Lisa from Omaha. Hi, Sue Simmons, my sweetie, my friends from way back. If you have any questions about what I'm really like, she knows everything. Heidi from Madison, great to have you on. And Jem from Austin, keeping it weird in Austin. It's just getting weirder and weirder. So what I want to talk about first is how important it is for you to move out of temporary, muscle through, out hustle, as Kelly Thompson said, out hustle this pandemic. Those were some temporary solutions. And now that at least much of our lives is going to be altered going forward in some big ways, I want you to be rethinking what was temporary that now I need to actively design, that I need to actively get on board with. Shauna's from Omaha, Amanda's from Iowa. So you've heard about me, but not from me. Hi, Amanda. Welcome to our group. We've got Talisha from Houston. And Alpine, California, 30 minutes east of downtown San Diego. One of my sons is in Ocean Beach quarantining. He loves it there. So Lori's from Greeley, Colorado. Darcy from Lincoln. Thank you, guys. I think it's just important to get to know each other. And because people have loved this Facebook Live process, I'm thinking about really creative ways how we form kind of an inner circle. And those of you that this is so helpful get ongoing support from coaching and group coaching, and how we really take this to a new service and products that we're bringing out to have me basically in your space once a week on an ongoing basis. So I'm thinking that through. What I was talking about is that so much of us, when we thought this was like temporary, we were going to get through with heroics and out hustling the pandemic and temporary solutions that were good for the time. But now I think it's really time to take what we've done, which for many of you, hopefully you radically simplified, gave up all the things that really weren't worthy of your time, things that didn't matter, things that didn't take priority. And now you're really looking at how can I make some of these changes more long-term? Perhaps something that you've discovered is something you want to keep. You're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much I value reading before bed, or how much I value having dinner with my kids or my roommate or my partner. So some of it is are things you've discovered that you want to make sure and take on as rituals, routines, and habits. Some are things that you did as makeshift that now that you're thinking about it, you probably need to delve deep into this. And in fact, accountability, the first factor in accountability is commitment, the willingness to do whatever it takes. And so let me give you an example. It's like, sure, I can go virtual and I can kind of skim my way through a Zoom meeting. But now that it's bigger than just a 2-week strategy to get us through, it's more of a way of life. Are you going to go deep and really, not just because you like it or love it, but are you going to go deep and really get fluent in the new tools that we'll all be using? I know for me that I thought, well, I'll learn enough Zoom to kind of get by. And now that there's going to be so much emphasis on WebEx and Zoom and virtual presentations, I'm like, I want to go deep and master this. I can't just be a novice at this. If this is the key platform on how I need to deliver business value and life value to people, then I owe it to myself and others to get really fluent in it. So I'm starting to see a list of new skills and techniques that I got to get fluent in. I've had training for how to do great things on the stage. I need training on how to do things great virtually so that it's not just a boring, kind of session. I need to not just try eCam out, which is something we're using to bring this to you, but I need to really get good at this. So I want you thinking about what has this pandemic revealed for you, and what strategies were short term that now you need to really commit to some longer term strategies to grow and develop and stay relevant and ready for what's next in your work and in your play? And some of you, what is revealed to you, because I know how you live, is, oh, I was right on track when I left my role 2 years ago and just said, I'm going to live on less money, but be more available for things I love. I'm on track. So good on you if some of you have done that. Hi, Tiffany. Hi, Angie. Hi, Heidi. Heidi from Omaha. And we got Deandra from Olympia, Washington. Jacqueline from Oklahoma. Awesome, awesome, awesome. We're talking today about what the pandemic's revealed to you, and it can be a need for how you need to grow next. It could be places where you're right on track. It could be um, things that you've had time to do or the necessity to do that you forgot you enjoy. For me, I'm paying a lot of attention to what feels effortless, what feels energy building to me when I think about, oh, this is on the docket for today. Am I excited or not excited about that? What is energy depleting? Hey, Chris, good to have you. Heather, great to have you on. Really getting into what's been revealed. And so I would love to hear from you in the comments now that we got you guys typing. What's been revealed to you through this pandemic? And it can be something vulnerable. It can be, good to know. And it doesn't even sign you up to change it, because a lot of us know some things about ourselves that the motivation to actually change it doesn't come till later. So first, it's just getting an awareness of what are you noticing. When this pandemic hit, I just asked people to notice and have compassion for what they're noticing, maybe how judgmental they are, how irritable they are, how much they try and control the uncontrollable. Being home with your family really reveals a lot. Ram Dass always talks about, if you're feeling so enlightened, go home and spend a week with your family, and that will show you kind of what's left of your ego. So I'd love to hear from you, like, what has this revealed to you? And what are you noticing about yourself? And so Heather's starting us off. Thank you, Heather, for your first reveal. And so Heather is saying that I need to be more available to new ways of connecting so I can get energy as an extrovert. Love that. So we knew you probably knew you're an extrovert and you knew that it was energy building. And there's so many beliefs we've had to challenge. Like I've coached people and they're like, Sai, it's just not the same virtually as it is in person. And I would say, I would question that. What about it is not the same? And what power do you have over making it the same? And I will tell you, I'm coaching people that they're like, weird enough. I've been trying to connect with this employee in the office for a long time. Weirdly enough, now that we're virtual, and in fact, for them, they could only be by phone, I wasn't keyed in on her body language and maybe what I saw as rejection or frustration. I just listened to her voice, and not having the full presence opened up a ton of space for us, for me to actually hear what it was she was wanting. And so I think it's so important that for those of you that are extroverts, for me as an introvert, what's been revealed to me is I forgot how much I love being alone. Now, I am used to, I grew up in a huge family with lots of craziness. I have lots of kids. I love to have everything going on around me. I love that part. But what I forgot about is how much I like my alone time that is not spent waiting. So I'm alone a lot in my past travel schedule. I would get to my hotel and be alone for hours and be on the plane and even presenting in front of people, but alone. But that alone time was getting work done in the interim because there's something next to do. It was just being productive in the downtimes, or it was getting rest, or doing some of those things like watching TV or reading a book. But I really have understood for an introvert, I'm talking alone time to just daydream, which I found out I remembered as part of my creative process. Just lots of movement, alone time to read and listen. So I love that that's something that you've learned, Heather. Um, Ashley, who is absolutely amazing, has learned. Ashley in Richmond, her husband Terry is one of the archaeologists, or probably the head. I'm screwing up his title at Montpelier, and Ashley works at Richmond's University. So let's see, for the spiders, if I remember right. Being away from my office has provided the distance I've needed to put challenges into their proper perspective. Things that seemed impossible to manage feel much more manageable now when viewing it from the outside. What I love about what Ashley you're saying is the power of perspective. So I've talked a lot on when you're feeling anxious and overwhelmed, coming close in, really getting in the present moment for now. Here's what I need, and I have that currently. Here's what we know. That gets you out of anxiety. But when you start to get stuck or feel like there isn't hope, or feel as if it's like an unworkable solution, getting big is better. And I talked about this in the podcast this week, distancing yourself, gaining perspective. So if you have an issue, maybe in one of your relationships, rather than abandoning or giving somebody the silent treatment, saying, you know what, I want to take a couple of weeks just off of this, know that I'm working to open my mind and heart up. So I don't feel abandoned, but I want some perspective. Or in this case, just having distance really gets you to look at issues from a whole different viewpoint. And when you're feeling lost or stuck, getting that perspective is really important. It can be, given the big picture, it's not that important, or it can be, now that I've taken a step back, it's not that personal. Now that I've allowed myself to quit ruminating and obsessing on it, I can unhook the ego and just see it for what it really is. Even putting our thoughts on paper is distancing ourselves from our thinking so that we can come back and see it with fresh eyes. I forget who said it, but he also lives on a lake, and I live on a lake. And he talked about marriage arguments, and he said, the truth is revealed, the real truth is revealed with one good lap around the lake. And for those of you that live close to nature, um, our view can get so narrow and such limited focus for solutions where it's either just fight, flight, or freeze, win, lose. That if we can get out in nature and instead of having a roof above us, have a sky above us and see how expansive that sky is, it somehow opens up all these possibilities. That's what toggling from low self to high self does, is it changes your perspective. So you're using all of your intelligence. You're not just using your most primitive intelligence, the ego, which sees things as really lack and limited. These are fantastic. Sharon says that, let's put this up, that she's not as introverted as that you once thought. I need to find more hobbies to occupy myself and make the effort to reach out more to others. Interesting. And all of these, again, you don't have to then launch into how I need to be completely different and, take up toll painting and spend $1,000 on wooden bowls and, brushes. And first greet these awarenesses about yourself with just say, good to know. Because what you need to practice for as leaders, you can first practice on yourself. So if something is revealed, you're like, good to know. And then you might reflect on that. So, what's useful to me and how might I want to move through the world differently? What might I want to remember and really be journaling or documenting at this time? But yeah, finding there was a lot of things that we gave our energy to that now that we are um, a bit isolated, we might find pockets of time that we allowed other things to use up, that we were more the bystanders or the unconscious ones, that we weren't really choosing how to use our time. So you might find blocks of time you're like, you know what? I would like to invest some energy. I have some pent up energy. I would like to create or that, for me, I've read a lot about introverts. My mind picks up because I am one online. And some people are saying what's revealed to me is I'm not sure I'm as introverted as I think. I think I just had a low tolerance for small talk and shallow conversation because I have had some amazing, the cell phone coverage here is crazy, so it doesn't always work, but I've had some amazing, like, in depth, like multiple hour long conversations with people, with my kids, with that I haven't had for a long time. And so to me, that may not be as introverted as I think. So thank you for that. Darcy says that she's finding as an introvert that she's starting to miss people. Like, I should just let you guys teach this or host this, that um, you know, as an introvert, it's not necessarily that we'll pick up the phone and call, but that we want to know that we could. And so there's some comfort in just knowing that you have people that would pick up your call, or that when you text, you have people that would text you back and be responsive. And as you're realizing about yourself, maybe what might be revealed to you is what other people's languages of love are, what other people might need from you. So if it's another introvert, I just assume, they know I'll text when I text, but I have to pay attention if I want to give care and feeding to my relationships, that if somebody's not so introverted and I go through, because I'm getting so many cool messages and I'm in the creative process, so I kind of drop out for hours at a time, because if the writing is happening, I just stay writing till 2 in the morning. Um, but how can we go out of ourselves and really try and be of service to others and thinking about their styles and what's important to them? And has anybody checked in and just say, hey, I saw on Facebook you like made it through the day with a lot of kids home and a lot of homeschooling and a lot of meetings. And, even though I'm finding my introverted world, how are you doing out there? So I love that. And the recognition that even just realizing how well loved we are is something being revealed to a lot of this. Lori, next up, her job as a healthcare leader was eliminated in December due to the need to streamline to meet lower reimbursements. So I used to say, gosh, I'm really sorry to hear that. But quite honestly, I'm hearing so many mind blowing stories that to me, old school is, I'm sorry to hear that because that sounds awful. But part of me is like, oh my gosh, so you were ahead of the curve on reinventing yourself. That sounds amazing. But she says she was ready to enter the market when the pandemic hit, and now having to rethink how to market my skills and value, as not as much is out there now. Interesting on how my hope for you is you feel your way around all the edges of this. So if your thinking gets involved, you're going to feel like I already was at a disadvantage and now I'm unemployed with millions of other people. That just means it's my future's written. It's going to be hard to get a job. There won't be. Instead of saying, you know what? I maybe was ready to jump in, market myself without all the reflection of what do I really value? What can I really do? And what's relevant in the world right now? And how can I offer relevance? And I'm here to tell you that when you look on the macro, for those of you thinking about how to support yourselves going forward and how to do meaningful work and how to do what you love, that on the macro, you can psych yourself out very quickly. But on the micro, there's only one you. And there's not a lot of people that will pivot and use this time to make themselves incredibly relevant, that will be able to repurpose skill sets that will. So don't psych yourself out by looking on the macro. There's only X amount of jobs for so many people, because on the micro, there are a whole lot of folks who unfortunately aren't readying themselves right now with an eye towards the future. So there are new jobs opening up all the time. I'm fascinated because public health is part of my background as a healthcare administrator. I'm fascinated about the role of tracker, um, and some of those things going on. It's really exciting to me. I'm fascinated by what in healthcare we're going to need as support for rebuilding. I was talking to one colleague of mine, and she too, before the pandemic, had been, I don't know what you call it, furloughed, or the position had changed. She was without work, and she has amazing skills at, healthcare finance and leadership. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, wait a minute, post COVID, just think of the purchasing nightmares of getting a bunch of equipment in. And now, how do we even sort out and make sure we receive that and pay for it? What do the people in healthcare need to um, recover and for reconciliation to happen? Because there's some real trauma that happened to some people on the front lines. What do we need to do to re-educate patients who are fearful? They're not even coming into the ER for heart attacks because they believe they'll get COVID, and we want to have elective surgeries. People need preventative and elective care. Like, what is the role out there that helps educate our patients to know how to safely re-enter, and helps us rethink healthcare so we know how to safely bring healthcare either when people come to us or as we're out there? And so I guess I'm saying is you can find a way to focus on energy depleting things and talk yourself into gloom. And I'm spending a lot of time on this, Lori, not because you don't have a great attitude, but it comes up so much. Versus what are you spending on? How can I be the top candidate for any job I apply for? When people tell me before the pandemic, there's such a shortage of healthcare workers, they're like, we just are never going to get all the nurses we need. I said, think about it differently. The real shortage is great places for high accountables to work. That's the real shortage. And you don't have to beat the macro. You just have to be the top candidate for the one or two positions you find. And that's what you can control. You can't control the unemployment, but you can control how you walk in there and are able to have a set of readiness skills that to proof that you're super resilient and that you can bring that and teach that and lead that way. So, Lori, we're glad to help in any way possible. So, I love that you shared that, and let's see what we can create here with all these cool people for you. So, Angela, it's good to see you again. Tiffany, I love that you are a steady soldier. Soldier's not the right word. It's good to see your smiling face on this on Facebook. So revealed to me is I'm an extrovert at work because it's needed for me as a facilitator and trainer, and who all can relate to that. And then you kind of pass out afterwards and manage your own energy. Um, Introverted at home, which is sanctuary and kind of Tiffany's natural state. Now realizing I don't have to be in person to connect. I love this. I will be, it will be game changing going forward using digital connection tools. I'm in the salon industry, so virtual learning will hopefully become a part of daily life to fit the lives of those we're reaching and impacting based on their schedules instead of ours. I would like to see in person training education as a big deal instead of the norm. I truly believe that for those of us in learning and development, Tiffany, and especially as introverts, we have in some ways been coddling and enabling a very old mindset and enabling people not to have to get good at virtual training and not have to, participate. So people will say to me, Sai, virtual training is just not that interactive. And I'm saying, well, wait a minute, where's the shared accountability? You have a chat box, you have a question box. I break you into break rooms on Zoom. I do all of these things and it's crickets out there. I think in-person training can have the facilitator carry more of the load so that people can be kind of like lazy learners. And I love that, we built a comprehensive virtual training, reality based rules for employees, micro content, incredibly professionally filmed, super inexpensive for all the content. We built one for leaders as well. Beautiful platform. You can buy it as individually or as groups. And we did that about 6 years ago. And we have had the hardest time up until now selling that because people would say, I just don't know if my people would actually use it. And I'm like, but you have the records in the administrative log to see who's on, and why would that be performance management one-on-one? We gave you this tool and you're not using it. And so for me, I'm excited about where we could go virtually because what is being revealed to me is because I traveled so much, I chose to love it. Little secret here, I don't like it. If you said Sai, would you rather do that virtual in your, Mexican shirts and your shorts from, watching the ocean out the window? Or would you rather, fly to us, 3 connecting flights, drive till 2 in the morning with a rent a car through snow so that we feel better? Which do you prefer? So I'm so excited about this. Now, some of us, Seth, I can't remember. I'm forgetting Seth's last name. Famous Seth, sociologist. Alex on my team just sent me a blog from Seth, and it's like because we were used to it, we never questioned it. But we get up, we get dressed, we've paid for dry cleaning, we get in our car, we commute an hour, we risk our lives because we're texting and trying to work and commute, and we go. And he just went through like all the steps of what we do to get in person, going through TSA and flying and connecting, and it's a big pain in the butt. So there would have to be a lot of benefit to outweigh it. But we don't question it because it's unconscious, it's asleep, it's routine. What this pandemic has done is put everything out there. So because it's different, it's like driving a different way to work, you notice things. We're noticing things and hopefully questioning them, because after you get out of survival, you need to really question things and curate your life so that you're only bringing forward conscious choice. But it really has us looking at, just because we were used to it doesn't mean it was worth it. And so many of us are like, I can't wait till it goes back to normal. Or they're saying, I'm so sad it will never be that again. If you're shying away from virtual things because you're not yet used to it, get in there, get committed, really dig deep. I'm committing myself to, over the course of the next month, to get much better at this virtual stuff so that anything that was at risk that we aren't interactive, I at least will have my skills to a level that I can do my best to get interaction going. So I love it. I really, as part of curating my life, have to look at ways how I did things out of people pleasing. I did things not because that was the life I could design for me to be at my happiness. No, because I chickened out and said, well, what would happen if I wouldn't go out there and be so willing to present and so willing to drive through the night for my clients? Maybe they wouldn't, want me, and maybe my business would decline. And how do you find that balance towards giving customers what they need, and what they request, and being customer forward, customer led, and where you're participating in something that no longer works for you because people don't want to upgrade their skill set, so you downgrade your lifestyle to meet an old skill set. And I'm just getting a lot revealed to me about what I did that was enabling versus what I can do that helps people move forward. And I'm just excited about this part of training and developing falling apart. I just had a client call today, and they're kind of like, you know what, if we're being honest with you, Sai, they've delayed their training a couple of times. And they're like, if we're going to be honest with you confidentially, like, we're not going to even have this thing put back together till like 2021, 22. So if we want an in-person event, like, it's 2 years out. We probably need to think about something different. And I'm flexible either way. I'm like, I will be there for you in 2 years. I will be there for you now. But many of us are realizing that events we postponed. So even for us, like the Ditch the Drama tour, we had this big road show planned, and so many of you bought tickets. We will honor that. And we're thinking, in the first couple of weeks, I'm like, my direction to my team, and we kind of made a joint decision. It's like, let's just let this play out and maybe see rescheduling it in August or September. We were even talking about putting money back down on some venues. And then the more I talk to folks, and I'm in healthcare, and nobody's revealing anything they shouldn't, but you get those expert minds of CDC and NIH and the experts involved, and they're like, September starts flu season and a potential reemergence. And all of a sudden I started thinking, even I can't just keep rescheduling a live event in person. And so how do we think about really cool virtual Ditch the Drama tours with some extra value built in for folks? So a lot of us have to surrender and get out of this, it's temporary, to the panic of this could go on forever. So if I just approach it as I have been doing it temporarily and I extrapolate that to forever, it's going to be really painful. Or how do we say, if this is going to go on longer, how do we settle in, curate and design our life so that it accommodates by choice our new normal? And anytime you're suffering in current situations, I guarantee you it's one of three things. It is your skill set. You're trying to use an outdated skill set on a new reality. So all of us need to be checking our skill sets and need to be finding ways that we can update these. If it's not your skill set or only partly your skill set, then two is it's your approach. So approach is different than skill set, because a lot of times my approach is I'll do it myself rather than crowdsourcing it. Or my approach is I only want to get things perfect and then send it out in video, where I've had to change my approach and just say, no, just go live. And I'll notice 100 times I talk so much with my hands, right? And I'll bring them back down. Like, I had to change my approach to learning on the fly rather than, practice enough so it doesn't blow up. But so it's skill set, approach. And then here's the final holdout: willingness. Are we still pining for how it should go back to? I mean, I don't want to, I'll get political, but from a human behavior standpoint, some people that are out there saying, I don't care what the risk is, if I die, let me go back to work. That's a profound pining for the past. And we've got to hold on to the past and fight for it, especially resist change, especially if we are suspicious of our skill set, our approach, and that definitely is a sign of lack of willingness. So, being willing to participate with the universe and say to the universe, I don't know where this is going, but rather than just survive it, rather than just wait for it to return back to normal, I will step out, reach out my hand, share accountability, and co create what's next for me in the world. And really being willing to do that taps you into a lot of vulnerability. So, skill set, approach, willingness. I want for those of you that aren't as traumatized by this, that have more privilege or have, some reserves financially or have connections that can help you through this or, have less chaos in your home life. Those of you early ones, I want you to just really focus on how do I ready myself quickly for what's next and then be good to people. Go back and mentor those folks who didn't have time to do the deep research on how to use Zoom, where you wrote the cliff notes for the stay at home or the single mom who's trying to teach while doing Zoom. Share with others, take care of your people and be tribal about that. And we've really got to, since we're high on the learning curve, whatever one of us learns, we've got to really share it out there. Don't assume people know it. Whatever life hack you discover, whatever new Instagram account you love following, whatever it is that you could share to help other people, get out there and get it shared. Um, because that's important, especially for those of us. And I think most of it has to do with privilege. If I were 10 years ago in my business, I would be like scrapping for how to meet next week's payroll. I'm so grateful that I run my business without debt and I'm at a place at age 55 where I don't have to panic. That had to do with hard work and some good decisions, but folks, that had to do with a ton of privilege. So if I can get out there because of my privilege, how can I help other folks and bring them along in this? And so it's very exciting. So Catherine, I love all your thumbs up, you guys, you're awesome. Catherine, big fan. I always love things that start out like that. What is your number one leader advice to successfully sustain engagement while teams transition remotely? Any successful exercise to incorporate weekly or during daily huddle? This is also where those of you can share on chat a bunch of ideas for Catherine while I answer this. Put it out there. So one of the things that I think is so valuable, it may not be the exact same routine, but carrying over your routine, except virtually, with making it fun is important. So if you did daily morning huddles, even if they were for 15 minutes, you might say, we're going to do daily morning huddles virtually. Now, you may accommodate if you know that, a friend of mine has a, um, a son of hers that has come home that has some additional needs as he gets dressed in the morning. He's got some disabilities. She might say, well, now that I'm home with him, I can't really jump on a call at this time. It can even be a texting fest, like a group text where everybody just text in, ask a question and have it text in. So keep some of those routines. Think about to keep people engaged touch points. And so keep those one-on-ones going. We know one-on-ones drive engagement. Keep team meetings going. And make sure that you aren't letting people off the hook to disengage. Have them put their video camera on. Have them interact. Call on them directly. Before, ask a question and have people be prepared to lead a meeting or connect. So all the things that go into engagement, especially accountability, are things we need to bring forward. Now, when we're remote, what we need to do is make things visible so that people are conscious about their choice. Engagement's a choice. And so the visible goal of this meeting is that each of you bring ideas forward about a new solution for X. Accountability goes with that. Bill, you're especially quiet. What would you like to add? And if you're not prepared to add, can you and I grab some time offline? I want to hear your ideas directly. Like, don't start enabling people just because we're remote, because accountability is things like follow through, and as asking how committed are you, and what does that commitment look like, and how are you gaining new skill sets to be really actively involved and connecting people. So engagement is all about, I care about you, you can trust me, I'm committed to excellence. We can still do amazing things because a big part of engagement is meaningful work. So don't just turn people loose to survive. That's not meaningful work. Um, Turn people loose to thrive and create and overcome and build something amazing together as teams. So I've heard, even those fun events where you enlist a delivery person, if somebody had a baby, to deliver cupcakes and some gifts, and you have, an online baby shower. You are reaching out, you're keeping small talk in your meetings, you're reaching out, you're giving celebrations. You're really keeping it alive, what people have been able to overcome this week. And so touch point, touch point, touch point, clarity of expectations, accountability and measurement towards those expectations. When there's a gap, to be able to say, this is what you committed to, this is what you delivered. Help me understand that gap. What's your part in that mess? What can you do differently? What's your self reflection? Really getting individualized with people about what their growth is at this time, what their expectations are. You really need to find your own time as a leader to process, so that when you're coming to people, it's with some clean asks, some clean feedback, some clean assignments for self reflection. And then, so now I give you the leader part of how to stay engaged. Here's the associate or team member part. It is not the leader's sole job to keep people engaged. That's my biggest problem with the workplace, that if you're not engaged, it somehow has to do with the workplace. This is the time to start talking about shared accountability for what this experience is like for you. So if you're disengaging and feeling unattended to, and help people self reflect on that, what is your role in feeling disengaged? And the key source of disengagement is when we toggle down, we're in ego and we're venting and we're in drama and we're seeing the world through the lens of ego. We look out where we can have impact and we see no options. And so it's like, oh, well, my only option is to disengage. If people are choosing that option, help them problem solve their way back into plugging back in. And I think that goes back to helping them explore skill sets, approach, and willingness. Because when people are toggled up, all of a sudden they can see all these options of how they can plug and play, and their natural instinct leads them into that option. When they're toggled down, they see limited options because they're using their ego, which is so primitive. I can fight, I can flight, I can freeze. So some of your people that are disengaging, it is not about what you're doing, except for you're allowing or enabling them to be toggled down. And when we're toggled down, that looks like the only option. And when we're toggled up, there's 100 different options. I toggled down multiple times when the pandemic first was hit our country, and my toggle down was unbelievable. I made a choice to stay in Mexico for a few days, and it seems like the right choice to do now. However, I want to help healthcare. I want to be the one out there, like, you know, I'm a social worker. I want to be out there helping test. Or I want to be in that emergency department, debriefing with people in the break room. Like, I wanted to run into the fire, to the scene of the crime. And then I started to toggle down. It's like, well, I'm stuck here, so there's nothing I can do to help. I need to just sit this one out and just make sure I'm better when I come back. And all of a sudden, I'm like, thousands of ways to help from right here. And I started to see those ways I could plug and play. But when I was toggled down, I could only see be there in person or prepare for when I can be there. When I was toggled up, I'm like, We can do Facebook lives, we can do coaching, we can put out, we're doing some videos for different systems to tell them how much we love them. And there's 100 ways that we can do that. So make sure, Catherine, as you're looking to engage people, ask them what's their level of engagement and how much of that has to do with you as a leader and how much of that has to do with their own approach, skill set, and willingness. And use this to develop their resilience. I'm going to be coming out with some work on resilience. We've done some work, but I'm coming out with some more. But what's being revealed to them about maybe how they have fallen asleep and given up their own accountability for engagement is you can be kind of a lazy engager when you walk into a beautiful office place who has concierge services that groom your dog, and you can have 28 types of tea catered in, and basically it's like you have to meet none of your own basic needs except for walk through the door and we will take care of making you feel loved. And we can get to be lazy engagers. It's very easy for me to gauge in a 5-star hotel experience. Like, I sleep on one bed and then I move to the next bed. And then, like, if I'm by the pool, I'll move to I'll try everything. I'm like, I don't really like tuna, but now that you're here, give me some of that. Like, it's so easy to engage lazily, right? I'll try tuna when it's delivered to you. When I'm cooking my own meals, have I tried anything new and different? No. So have people realize that they're going home and being remote. Maybe what's revealed to them, and you can talk about it as a team, is how active were we in our own experience and the satisfaction we had or the pleasure we had in our own experience. And what do we need to manufacture for ourselves? And here is the power in that. If I can understand my own engagement and my own choices in that engagement, then my engagement becomes portable. My happiness becomes portable. I'm no longer stuck or a victim anywhere. I can be confident that no matter what happens in the outside world, I can create that experience for myself. And to me, that's the ultimate freedom. So, lazy engagers, folks, help them out. Use this time to get some different things going. Oh my gosh, Mary, I'm glad you brought this up. I think a lot of people, you know, again, it's kind of like we get into routine and we kind of fall asleep, even though we feel enlightened. A lot of you know about love languages, and if you don't, there's so much great information out on the web. It's very much whether you're doing personality styles like Myers-Briggs or you're doing kind of true colors or love languages is a type of assessment and knowledge you can get about yourself, of which what really resonates with you that um, kind of mainlines the message, I love you, that comes from other people. So I don't remember all of them, but I remember mine, of course. I like acts of service. That's get shit done is a key love language for me. I tend to get in relationship with people who love quality time together. So people are like, can I come over? I'm like, sure. And they were thinking they would come over and we'd sit on the couch and spend hours connecting and talking. And I'm like, come on over. All I'm doing today is like laundry and prepping my meals for next week and answering emails. And it would be awesome. We could do yard work together. And they're like, what? So, acts of service, words of affection, gifts, not that people are materialistic, but, um, you know, um, kind of thoughtfulness, gifts, like materializing your thoughtfulness, quality time. And I think there's another one. I think there's 5. Anyway, we get a little lazy, and when we have to think about how do I meet that person's needs given our current reality, you got to get really creative and but pay attention to keeping the people you love well fed. So I'd love to hear ideas you guys come up for that. Daniel talks about, I refer to looking at the macro makes you feel small and insignificant. So I'm a tiny person with a few skills in a sea of unemployed people in an industry that's heading into a recession. Like, how bad can you paint it? But if you can just focus on what's in front of you, right? I love this. I want to make sure you get due credit for this. So I'm just going to add you for a minute, Daniel. Focusing on what's in front of you is what you can actually impact. And as I said, focusing on being the most qualified for the job. And by the way, when you're listening to national news, there aren't many of you that do comprehensive national searches. Stop torturing yourself. Most people, and I can't remember the current, and probably it's not even relevant anymore. Most people find a job, it's like less than 6 degrees of separation. Most people find a job that's very proximate to them, that came through kind of a referral lead. Those of you that are recruiters know this, that we have programs for people to refer in to people they know. So I love that you focus close in, and it speaks to the reality of how we do job searches anyway. Heidi revealed to her is preparing for the day is important. I think this is good for your own mental health and productivity, and for you to be available to others and you to come into the day intentional with some of your work processed. The worst thing we can do is come together with unprocessed work. That's where we get into our stress behaviors of overfunctioning or underfunctioning. We need to come in, having done our daily work, process our day, get ourselves clear, whether it's meditation or a good cup of coffee or a few minutes of silence. So Heidi's saying she takes 10 minutes in the morning to make sure that all the meals, the kids' activity, and exercising is on the to-do for the day. And we accomplish more and have less anxiety. I was doing the practice for this practice for my job, but not at home. This is really good stuff, because what's being revealed to a lot of us is that we know what works for us. We spend a lifetime figuring out what works for us in terms of how to show up and be available and be productive. But maybe we need to generalize what worked at home into what worked, what worked at work, like to what works at home. One of the things that's being revealed for a lot of people is how lazy they've been about boundaries. So, how many of you, like at work, you're kind, but you're like, I ain't taking that. Like, no. But at home, we allow so much to happen because we're scared of having the conversation and setting actual boundaries, and not boundaries to control other people about what they should be doing, but boundaries as far as what you need to be doing. And so it's just so interesting about what this is all revealing to us. So I love that. Look for what you already know about what helps you be successful, and see if you have some things you already know and you have some skill sets you're just not applying in the new situation. And also, a lot of your answers you're looking for are you the first things you think of, and they're so obvious, but your lack of willingness goes, well, besides that. So it's like, my kids interrupt me even when they're old enough to know better. And you might say, I just don't know what to do about that. And I'm like, well, maybe have some parenting techniques where they get docked or rewarded. It's kind of performance management for how they handle themselves through the day, and make it age appropriate and time level appropriate. And people go, okay, but besides that, and I'm like, well, perhaps setting boundaries with, if you have a spouse in this case, and being very clear about what you need from them during these hours. And they're like, yeah, besides that. And I'm like, well, what have you thought of? And everything we think of, people are like, yeah, except for that. Because the ego doubts and negates what truly is simple but has a chance of working, because it involves risk, vulnerability. Um, you can't just have a conversation once and everybody's perfect. It involves messy. It involves setting up a structure that didn't work and having to revise it. So, whatever's revealed to you, do you need more boundaries? Do you need more flexibility? Like, How many of you are horrified when your dog barks or your kids run through the screen while the rest of Zoom is delighted? We're like, bring them back. We want to see them. And so, like, what do you need to loosen up on? This is just all good self reflection. Hi, Don Snyder. Um, Need to hear these words about virtual presentation. Yeah, we got to raise our bar there because Don works at the Dorothy Pico Nature Center in Sioux City or outside of Sioux City. And, so many of us in the beginning were like, well, we can live through this and then go back to normal. And then we're like, it's not going back to normal. And all of a sudden it hits you like, how do I get funding when there's so many other needs? How do I usually do summer camp for 500 kids. How do we do that? And oh, we could take it all virtual. Well, how do I differentiate myself? And I'm not that good at it. And it's like, now that we're getting there, we're really seeing how big landscapes have changed and how some of us don't want to go back to how it was because we don't want to have to travel all over the world every day. And some of us are like, in order to stay relevant, I got to move ahead. So, how important, Lori, um, good to see you. I'm glad you get energy from this. Ian, we do share everything on our page. So, I'm recording this. And I also have, I think, now 3 other of these that are out there on the Facebook Live page. Next week, we're coming to you Wednesday at 12. I actually got a gig, you guys. Everybody's like, nobody can get gigs in this economy. Guess what? It's virtual. We're doing it. Um, and thank you, Business Solver, because they're so good at going into progressive support of everyone. But next week, noon on Wednesday, these are out there. I've changed my podcast, the No Ego podcast. I've changed that to be out there just answering questions about leading in through the pandemic. If you're not subscribed to Instagram, get with the 21st century. It's at Cy Wakeman. Subscribe to our podcast. Do me a favor. We have so much engagement from our fans. We are not reaching new fans. I need you guys sharing. If this is helpful to you, I need you out there sharing and really helping us grow the platform so we can take the message out there. So I'll come back to some of these. We're running out of time. I will capture some of these because I will handle some of these on the podcast too. So good. I love all that's coming up. Keep thinking about what's been revealed to you. It's revealed to me. I've said for 20 years, I'm one of those people that don't need a lot of sleep. I didn't know how sleep deprived I was. Like, I am not one of those people. I just didn't know what being rested felt like. So I didn't have the comparison. But that dull headache I have a lot, turns out it's hydration and sleep. So it can be little things. But I need to look at like what's being revealed to me is my habits when I'm alone. There's just so many things about. I'm actually a homebody. I love learning. I'm not. I don't take enough time in my normal days for learning and watching other people's webinar and podcasts. My energy is so high because I'm learning so much, and I forgot how energy building that is for me and how I like connecting and so much stuff coming here. Alex says when he's lost in the macro is the very moment that he realizes he needs to wake up and self-reflect on the one thing that he could do to be great right now, take that next simple step. Physical touch is the last language of love. And man, if that's somebody's primary language of love and they're isolating alone, we got to send them a puppy or something. Like those folks, that would be the hardest one for me in a quarantine to just find out how to get that need met. So I'm looking at these. We've got a couple minutes left. How do you help your family through the crisis while you're constantly in crisis mode at work? I work in healthcare. It's exhausting. I have 4 small kids that are really struggling. And by the time I get to them, I feel like I can't help them. So how do you leave the chaos behind? Amanda, I am so taking that to um, the podcast, or I'm going to cut a special video for that and put it out there. My quick words, because I have a minute, is really look and see if you are trying to be everything to everyone. And this could be the very space that somebody else can step up and be a hero and feel amazing that they were able to meet some needs. It could be a change in perspective. Your kids aren't going to be totally messed up by this. It's not your job to manage everything. Maybe all the kid will remember is that they got well loved and hugged. And so look at your standards, look at your control, not asking for help, not delegating. Look at how you're trying to be everything to everybody. Look at how you're putting your interpretation onto if the experience is enough for a 4-year-old child. Um, Look at work for ways maybe you're not having people come in and help you. Anyway, I adore you guys. I want all of you to be well, stay safe. I know many of you have people affected, jobs affected. All we can keep doing right now is sending big love and join us next Wednesday. Tell people about us. And it's just a pleasure that you give me this time each day. I love you guys. We got this. Not only do we got this, we're going to make this better than ever. What a wonderful wake up call. We got shook in our sleep here a little bit. So, for you lazy engagers, for you lazy virtuals, let's get it. Let's get it going on. Talk to you later.